Hey, what's up, everybody? Championship Leadership Podcast here, and I'm excited. We got Don Fausette out of just outside of Phoenix, Arizona. He prior military vet, police officer, and now CEO of ThinkReactLead, executive coach, speaker, and all around great man. So, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
I appreciate that, man. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah. First question. Right into it.
Hey,
the name
hit
of the
me, bro.
podcast is Championship Leadership. What comes to mind for you? Like, what does championship leadership mean to you when you think about that, when you hear that?
Yeah, when I hear championship leadership, I think honesty, integrity, loyalty, service. I think that just when I hear leadership, right, I think somebody who's comfortable in owning up to the stuff they suck at and being okay with saying, I don't know. Right, as a, whether they're talking to their employees, direct reports, etc. Somebody who's the same person inside their home as they are outside their home, which is rare these days.
Yeah, I was going to say that is rare these days, unfortunately. And but tell us a little bit about you, like military police officer. Now you're an executive coach. It's like that transition.
A shift
doesn't necessarily line up, but at the same time, I'm sure there's lots of things that you learned from those that do actually really serve you as an executive coach and speaker.
So high level overview, right? Joined the military, fresh out of high school, was K-9. Once I got out of the military, out of the Air Force, I became a cop. Learned a lot on the streets. I was a cop in Jackson, Mississippi. And then I jumped into sales, did sales for some time. And then I jumped into debt collection, learned a lot there. Then I jumped into leadership. I jumped into management during the debt collection phase. And then I realized, that people out in the corporate space suck at making decisions. And there's usually never a veteran around. So I leveraged my past and, got somebody to write me a nice little resume. And then I started getting hit up by headhunters because of the way my resume was written. And then I jumped into corporate leadership and I did that for 15 years. Right. And the only reason I'm an executive coach today and a leadership speaker is because I learned some things. I was a horrible leader at first because I came in with a military or paramilitary mindset. And I was always open to feedback. But I also knew that I didn't need to stay at a company longer than, I needed to. 2 or 3 years is as long as I would stay there. So I would jump from, bank to bank and jumped into the finance space. And the last 2 companies I worked for, I did leadership development. And I was always reading John Maxwell, the Dale Carnegie, just the books that every, I'd say normal manager or leader or executive reads, right? And I started using social media, Instagram specifically, doing videos about leadership just to better connect with my younger team. Because I couldn't, they weren't hearing me in our meetings, but I knew they were on their phones while they were working. So I gave them something to, to listen to look at. And those videos started to kind of spread. And I wrote a book, Think, React, Lead, When Success and Accomplishments Aren't Enough. And I just wanted to write a book. Just, who doesn't want to be an author? I know in our circles, everybody's an author, it seems. But like I said, before we hopped on this podcast, I had zero plans on being an entrepreneur. I didn't really know how to say the word because it's not a word you hear about. And I was coaching. I just needed a second stream of income. So I started just talking to people, and I've always valued time. So I started charging people, $30 a month. I just needed my gym membership covered. Right.
Yeah. Right.
It just kind of went from there. And then people started coming to me, other executives asking me questions about, relationship stuff. I'm like, bro, I don't know. I mean, I can help you, but I'm not going to talk to you for free. And I started reading, and then I went through the certification, not that you need one, through the John Maxwell certification and another one. And then I met somebody who literally was making $1 million a month in this coaching space. I'm like, get the heck out of here. He's like, yeah, bro, like this is all I do. I don't do much. Like I do this from home a few days a week. And I looked into that route from speaking and on stages and having a radio show now. And long story short, it grew into a business But for anybody that's watching, that's on the fence about entrepreneurship, when I thought I was ready to leave, I asked my dad. I didn't ask. I told him. I said, I'm really thinking about leaving my job. And I had a good position. I was making good money. I was able to travel where I wanted to, for the most part, right? I had a good situation. And his response to me was, if you can't handle the 40, 50 hours of work a week that you work, plus your 4 or 5 speaking engagements, plus your 4 or 5 coaching clients, then you'll never be able to handle being a millionaire. And he's hit that status twice in his life, and he's there now. And I thought about him like, well, okay, well, let me dig deep. Let me embrace the suck. Yeah, let me stop complaining. Let me manage my day effectively, right? Embrace the suck is a phrase that I use. Yeah. And I did that. And then it got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm making enough money in the coaching speaking space that I can, like, it's almost like I have to leave. So I left, and I don't look back. Now, granted, my teeth got kicked in the first 2 months I was out. I lost all my clients, got some canceled speaking engagements. My dog died, and my mom was in a coma, all within a 60-day period, right? But, I tell people, my clients, embrace the suck, because what you think sucks right now is nothing compared to what you're going to go through if you keep developing yourself. Because at the end of the day, when you run a business, it ain't hard. Like, it ain't easy, I should say. People are going to die, right? Grandparents, parents, aunts, uncles, friends, right? Your kids are going to get sick, right? You might go through a divorce. You might fall in love. Like, there's all these emotions that take place all while you're staying engaged and dialed in on running your business and growing your brand, that if you can't handle like the little things, like, you're just not going to make it. So embrace the suck, learn to handle them, right? And that's kind of the route I took. And 6 months later, obviously, I left, and July of this year was my second year anniversary, if you will. And I'm having fun with this, man. Long answer to a short question.
I love it. Thank you. And embrace the suck. It's one of the things we'll tell our clients all the time. Like, it's in life, I think there's this fairy tale of idea of, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have a job, I'm going to be happy, and like nothing bad's going to happen.
Right.
But like, that's the exact opposite. It is going to happen. And are you equipped? Do you have the tools, the skill sets, the mindset to not only be prepared for it, but like to expect it to happen and not get thrown off
the
rails, right?
Very true.
Yeah. You said Jackson, Mississippi. That brought me back. I was military as well.
Are you? Okay.
Spent 3 months in Hattiesburg, just outside of Hattiesburg. What's
okay. Oh yeah.
Camp Shelby.
Okay.
Training. Actually, that was Hurricane Katrina came through.
Right.
We were there during that, and got holed up in our barracks for 3 days while that came through, and then finished up our training before we got deployed. But
nice.
But yeah, Mississippi. Who are some of the championship level leaders that you've experienced, that you've had as mentors, that have really helped to shape you and help you on the path that you're on today? Like, who are some of those people, and maybe what did they give you, or what stood out to you from them?
You know what? There's probably a laundry list, right? Mm-hmm. It's I grew up in a pretty rough environment in Southern California, and I learned a lot about the power of words. I grew up in an environment, like, I got stabbed my sophomore year in high school because of something that I said. I learned the understanding of intuition and emotional intelligence as a preteen teenager. Mm-hmm. Leaving my neighborhood, I would have to walk, and I walked through a couple different territories just to get to school. And I learned, the power of non-verbals. I've seen people get killed just for looking at somebody wrong, right, at a very young age. And it's those situations were instrumental in the development of my leadership. I didn't know that then. It was just the way I grew up. But, obviously it starts at home. Your mom, your dad, both my parents, prior military. And one of the things my dad said growing up, he was a truck driver when he got out. And I remember one time we were parked somewhere at a mechanic shop, and a guy was in the heat like retreading tires. And retreading tires, for those that don't know, is if a trucker, or you can't afford new tires, you take the bald tires on your truck and somebody retreads them. At least it gets you down the road. And I said, I would never do that. My dad said, he looked at me, he said, boy, don't you ever say what you won't do for your family.
Yeah.
And as I got older, I found myself not retreading tires, but darn near close.
Yeah, right.
Right. So it started there. And then once I got into the corporate space, I started listening to the people that were talking to me. Yeah, I had leaders that influenced me in law enforcement, in the military. But when I got to the corporate space, it wasn't forced. Like, I think leadership in the military, law enforcement is forced, especially law enforcement. If you don't lead, you could die. So, the first one I would say is a naval officer, pig farmer turned naval officer, right? Michael DeWitt, not big on social media. He's not a coach, but he's the one that kind of instilled honesty, integrity, loyalty, and service. I saw it in him. He's probably 15 years older than I am. So he's 60, maybe late 50s. And then it really got dialed in with retired Chief Master Sergeant Lefford Fate. And I still to this day, haven't met him in person, but he's the one that kind of pushed me into this space of growth and development from the standpoint of leaving your corporate job and speaking. And then there's obviously, I've hired coaches, have coaches to this day, but it's really, I learn lessons every day, right? Whether it's from the 42-year-old gal at the local gas station, who I put a smile on her face just by talking to her, and it was dead. And, asked her, what's her background? And obviously at 42, you don't plan on being a gas station attendant. So I learned from people like that, and I learned from my clients. So I think every day, every interaction with humans for me is a leadership or a champion leadership experience.
Yeah. Yeah. What's, I'm sitting here listening to you talk and tell your story about how you made this transition to what you do, which is a coach, a speaker. You get a radio show.
Right.
We deal with a lot of clients that want to be coaches. I've done it, I've made the transition myself, and
Right.
And there's no blueprint out there.
There isn't.
And it's just like, it's always interesting to hear how that happens. And so, yeah, how long have you had the radio show?
So let me answer your question, and I'll tell you why I do radio. Yeah, I've had it for probably 6 months now. The reason I have a radio show is because, well, one, my mantra is change one life every day for the rest of my life, right? I don't have a gun and a badge anymore. I use my voice. My voice changes lives, whether my voice on stage, voice, on a one-on-one call, or doing lives, or in this case, radio. The reason I have a radio show is because everybody in our space, and I'm not knocking podcasts, but I did the podcast and I didn't like it. For me, it was too time consuming. Mm-hmm. And I did a podcast for like 3 months. And I was like, this is not the business. Yeah. And I had the opportunity to do a radio show. And for me, from a branding and marketing standpoint, it seems like there's a million coaches and speakers out there. And every 90 days, I'm trying to level up. Like, what can I do with my brand to get to the next level? And for me, in order to stand out, I said, radio is going to help me stand out, because not too many people in my space have a radio show. Right. And what that's done for me is helped me grow my client base, right? Because now people that thought they were competing with me, I knew they weren't, but they thought that they were. They see me on this next level. So now, I go from coaching executives to coaching coaches, and I'm a speaker's coach as well, but turning it into a business. And when you do things, for me, when I do things like that, it helps me stand out even more. My next step is a TV show, right? And I take my radio show and I have a bunch of cameras and I record everything and I put it out there. I have a guy editing all my stuff now, so that I'm seen, like my brand is seen on the same stage or spaces like the Joe Rogans, the Gary V's, because there's not a lot of people doing content like that as often as I am. And that's my reason for doing a radio show. And it's on an AM station, but my audience doesn't see AM. They just see, wow, Dom's on a radio show. Like this is his next level. So that's That's why I do a radio show. I don't know how many listeners I have. I don't even care because I'm doing it for video content, and I'm doing it for a more credible space that's not as crowded for people in my industry.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And how'd that opportunity come up? Like just.
Oh, it's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
So, I grew up stuttering. I still stutter.
Okay.
Because of some of the things I went through in the military, things that I saw and went through as a cop, I have Tourette's. Anybody listening, if you listen close enough, you're going to hear it come out. But so I'm not the ideal candidate for radio. Trust me on this one.
Right.
But I was speaking in Dallas, I think, and somebody saw me on stage and they're like, dude, you need a radio show. And I've heard that a lot growing up just because I have a deep voice. I'm like, yeah, no.
Yeah, you got a great radio voice, man.
Like speaking is not, I'm like, bro, nobody wants to listen to an idiot like on a radio show. I don't have that voice. But the guy that I met in Texas, ironically enough, he lived down the street from me. And I had never met him before. And he has a radio show. He's like, bro, I got to get you connected with my guy to do a radio show. I said, I don't know, but hey, I don't know what needs to happen, but let's try to make this happen. And I met the guy. I didn't like that station, but it got my brain thinking, what other stations can I get on? So I found a station and talked to them, and then boom, there I was on the radio show doing my thing. And it helped me because with radio, you can't have dead air. You have to time your segments because there's commercial breaks and there's no dead air. So it helps me. I speak every day, and that's my training. It's reps. That's how I'm a dope speaker. Like on stage, I kill it. But with radio, it's boom, 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 boom. Like you got to go, and you got to know what the heck you're talking about, because when people tune in, they're expecting a thing, and it helps me deliver content in a way that drives the message back to what I started with in the show, and I don't get long-winded. So it's I actually love radio now, but that's how it happened. I was on stage, somebody saw me, and then it was nepotism from that point. Yeah,
like you said, I mean, if you want to get better as a speaker, you got to speak more, and to have a radio show, I mean, like just to continually just get better at your craft and your message, and like you said, timing and just everything involved. I mean,
it's serious, bro. Like you mentioned timing, like that is key. And honestly, like, and I'm sure you go through this too. I know that I need to do more lives. I hate doing lives.
Yeah, exactly.
For anybody listening, I don't care who you are. When you jump on and do a live, and you do a live for 7 minutes and 3 people showed up, I don't care how much command presence you have. I don't care how confident you are. Like it plays on you. Like it doesn't play on me that much, but I'm like, I got 5,000 followers. So Facebook says, 3 people have time to tune in. I'm like, what are you doing at 6 p.m.? Yeah. Right? I don't. And then it's just like with radio, I just feel comfortable with doing lives like from home. It's like, I don't feel like doing it, but because you got to run a business, but doing lives is part of the business. So for anybody listening, if you don't have a radio show, you're not doing a podcast, like your podcast makes you be consistent, right? Radio, I got to be there every Monday night. It makes you consistent, but lives, you can think about it. By the time you set up your lights and log in and find a title, you're like, you know what? Let me just do this tomorrow.
Yeah, right. Well, and, I mean, just like I'm sure you talk with your clients all the time, I'm sure you don't always want to do the radio show. You don't always want to do a live. I don't always want to do the podcast.
Right.
Always when I get in it, like I enjoy it. And it's
yeah, totally.
But yeah, you don't always feel like doing it. And, but the ones that succeed, the millionaires, like you said, like
they push.
I mean, hey, they do it all the time, not when they want to. So
it really boils down to there's something I do with myself, and I've been doing this for a while. I ask myself at the end of the day, what can I do next? And about to sneeze. All right, there we go. And when I ask myself, hey, Dom, what can you do next? Yeah, that's what makes me do the live, or that's what makes me do the post. And for any coach out there that's just, I'd say, been coaching for 2 years. Now, not that you've been coaching for a decade. When I say 2 years, I'm talking you've been freaking making money for 2 years, right? I've been a coach for a decade. I can't tell by your living situation.
Yeah.
Or you just like, you don't know how to make it a business. So anybody that's been legit on their own coaching and making money from that over the 3 years or less, if you're not consistent on social media, you're going to fail. I had a lady message me yesterday. She said, I want to be a life coach. Do you know of any certifications? And I do videos all the time. I shot her a video text. I said, look, bro, you don't need to be certified. Like, there's no such thing, in my opinion, as a life coach. Like, I can't coach somebody's entire life. Like, that's impossible. Like, I can be a nutrition coach, a diet coach, a speaker. Like there's a lot of things I can do, but a life coach, and you don't need a certification. Like, certifications don't mean anything. They don't mean anything, but you can learn from what you pay for, right? If you do get certified, but don't hang your hat on a certification. Hey, I've got over 3,000 posts on one of my Instagram pages, right? It's I'm heavy into social media. And what's crazy is, and I don't know if you've seen this, where you start your business and then you start charging people for other things that you've learned to be good at. Like, I have 80,000 followers plus on my Instagram at Dom Fausette, but people were asking me, Dom, how do you grow your Instagram? Well, the why is free, bro. Like, the how is going to cost you. And I know the power of having numbers, right?
Yeah.
Because what I was charging at 20,000 followers is way different than what I charge at 8,000 followers, because it's credibility. People don't follow anybody that nobody follows. So now I help coaches and speakers grow their social media. And, I've got my last client from 1,500 followers to 20,000 followers, but for me, it's another stream of income. I never thought about being an entrepreneur. 2, I never thought I'm 41. I'm an old, at this stage, in a social media game, I'm an old guy, right? And it's like, okay, like, but if you're older, like, you think differently. Everything is a stream of income. And then I'm talking to your listeners. When somebody calls you, you don't answer the phone. The only time I take calls is, one, if somebody wants me to go riding motorcycles with them, like, I'll take calls for that. Skateboarding, I'll take calls for that. Fun stuff. But if I know it's a how do you do this, bro, here's a link.
Yep.
My call, my 30-minute calls are $97, right? And that saves me so much time. And anybody listening, stop meeting people at Starbucks or wherever you meet them. And let me break this down. A 30-minute meeting, and it starts, hey, let's link up for coffee. Anytime somebody reaches out to you to meet up for coffee, it's a win-win more, and they're on the win more side of that equation. So when they reach out to you and you say yes, you're going to drive 10, 15 minutes, best case scenario, right? So say 15 minutes there, you risk getting into a car accident, wear and tear on your car or truck, gas. You get there, 30 minutes turns into 2 hours, right? And now 15 minutes back to your house, wear and tear on your vehicle. So now you've got 3 hours of your day gone. And that person never becomes a client, never becomes a client. Yeah, and I ask people, because it happened to me. Hey, bro, I'd like to meet you. He said, for what? Great question. I couldn't really answer the question. In fact, and it's like four years ago. Yeah. And I learned this from David Meltzer. If you're going to meet somebody in person, 20 minutes or less. Anything more than 20 minutes is you're socializing. On a phone call, 5 minutes or less, if you're going to do it for free. Anything longer than 5 minutes, you're socializing, right? And you get time back that way to spend with your family, get to enjoy it. I mean, it's nice outside in Arizona, 75 degrees. Like, I'm good. Time to hop on my Ducati and go. But it's charge for your calls. I used to charge $10 for my calls because that was the value that I felt that I brought to the table, right? Sure. We all grow our business and like our practice.
That value gets that time gets more valuable.
It does. The more you educate yourself, learn yourself, right? And understand what you're doing. And that helps. The more clients you bring in and you see their growth, their success, you're like, oh, shoot, I'm going to charge this much.
Yeah.
So anybody who's just starting out or not currently charging for phone calls, you better do it.
Yeah. And on the flip side is like, stop asking for people's time for free, right? Like, value their time, value your time. And like when you're willing to put money on the table without them even having to ask, like, they know, like, all right, let's go.
It's a beautiful thing. And if you don't have money to do it, and you say you're a speaker, I'm sure some of your audience are speakers.
Yeah.
When you go to an event, and you're speaking, but you're not the big man on campus or big woman on campus. I need you to take a tripod. I need you to take a camera, right? I take a DSLR. I used to, and some sort of lav mic. Look up, just Google lav mic if you don't know what it is. And when you do that, once you get off stage, because now you've associated yourself with, the other speakers there, interview them, record the content, and then post it on your social media. Because a lot of speakers, they're a little arrogant, right? They are. And a lot of, some of them are douchebags, but you know what? Play on that. Everybody wants to be seen.
Feed
so
it.
when you pour some gas on that fire. Watch it flame up. And then you connect with them. Now they love you. So now when you send in the video, whether they post it or not, you can just say, hey, I got this content. Here it is for free. I love all the things that you said. Can I ask you a couple questions? And if you're smart, you'll ask them those questions then and there. Or you'll ask them the questions on the interview. A lot of speakers like to hear themselves talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's how you cultivate those relationships if you don't have the budget to pay for their coaching services.
Yeah, I love it. Well, let's talk. I love this question here. So what's a critical moment or a turning point in your life where, no doubt you've made them because of what you're doing today is very different than what you started out doing. A lot of people that they go with the masses, right? They're taking what the safe route, the safe path. And oftentimes the championship leaders are willing to they have that vision for something that most others can't see. And they're willing to actually also decide to move that way. What's a moment for you that, had you not made that decision, maybe played it safe, you wouldn't be doing what you are today, that has really altered your life?
I don't think it was playing it safe because I've never played it safe. It just wasn't, I'm a firstborn and there's just a lot that goes along with that. But I would say the biggest moment that altered my life was when I was a police officer. And I was probably about 2 years in, maybe 3 years in, and I was in a position to take somebody's life. And I was pretty dark. I used to kick in doors without a bulletproof vest. And I was in a very, very, very dark place because I had seen a lot of dark stuff. And I'm standing there with my weapon drawn, and I'm about, on a Glock 19, it's about, without any aftermarket things, the trigger pull is about a 5-pound trigger pull. So I'm about 2.5 pounds of trigger pull in on this. And I'm looking at this guy, and I'm looking, to hit him once in the head and twice in the chest. And just as I'm pulling the trigger, use all the commands, stand down, all that stuff. One of his sons steps around his hip and says, "Daddy." And when I heard that, there's when kids are on scene and you're about to take somebody out, it changes the scenario quickly. And it shifts you mentally and emotionally. I don't care how much adrenaline you have going on. I don't care how far you're pulled into that trigger. But I had to make a decision. Do I kill this guy in front of his son? Which afterwards I realized he had 3 sons, all under 7. Or do I find another way to de-escalate the situation? Well, there was no de-escalating that situation. As he had a knife in his hand. But I said, you know what, God, if it's my time to go, it's my time to go. But I'm not gonna shoot this man in front of his kids because they're gonna grow up hating cops and they're gonna grow up without a dad. So I holstered my weapon, and no sooner than I holstered my weapon, he charged after me. And up to this point in my life, I had already, I'd been fighting kickboxing and all this stuff. And once once we connected and we collided, you learn as you train in fighting and de-escalating situations. You keep your eye on the weapon, right? So when you keep your eye on the weapon, you know how the body's going to move because nothing else is a threat at that level. So we connected. I blacked out, and when I came to, he was on the ground, and I already had 1 cuff on his wrist. And I'd say a couple months after that, I quit. But I I joined the military because I wanted to know what it felt like to take a life, right? And I became a cop because I never took a life in the military, wanting to do the same thing. And in that moment, I realized, one, I just in that moment specifically, I didn't have what it took to just take a life. And I realized, or God told me, I didn't put you on this earth to take a life. I put you on this earth to save lives. And I was like 24 at the time. And yeah, my life changed from there. And I was very focused. I didn't know how I was going to change lives. Like, I didn't know that, I could speak on stages. Like, that wasn't a thought process. I just knew that
Right.
I had to retire the badge. Right. And I left. So telling people that story, I started in the corporate space, and because people look at my social media and they don't see that side of me. Right. But, there's things that I've gone through that I have to live with. And, I don't care how successful you get, there's times that, and I don't do it now, but even a year ago, I find myself sleeping in the closet, right? Cause that's my comfort place. And that's all PTSD and all that jazz. But, that moment right there is what led me down this path. Now, granted, we're looking at 16, 17 years ago. So it took me a while to get here, but that was the pivotal, that was a turning point in Dom Faussette's life.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for sharing that. But yeah, I mean, it makes total sense now that you say that, like, to see the path from, how you got to the corporate side to eventually leading you to where you're at today, which, more than likely was just the path that was intended for you from God as well. So,
right.
Same thing for me, like where I'm at today. And I kind of always knew I wanted to do something like this. I just had no idea how it would happen. I heard you kind of say that same thing, like at 24, when you turn your badge in,
right.
This is how it's going to work, but it does. And so thank you for sharing that. That's powerful.
Of course, brother.
Yeah. One last thing here before we close this out. Like, what are one or two things that you could leave with the listeners? Entrepreneurs, people just wanting a little bit better in their life, want to move forward. What's something you could leave with them that they could implement and put into play for themselves to get a little bit better?
I'll leave you two things, or leave two things for your audience. One, learn to forgive, because you can't. It's not fair to the people that you're coaching if you haven't fixed your heart. Learn to forgive those that have hurt you. Learn to forgive yourself for those that you've hurt. Because if you're waiting for an apology from somebody, or if you're waiting for somebody to accept your apology, you'll be waiting till the day you die. And once you learn how to forgive and actually become happy, like actually happy, right? You completely change as a person. And then the other thing is, fix your home first, right? Before you try to go down this path. I'm a firm believer that if you can't lead from the inside of your doorknob, you have no business leading or be a person of influence from the outside. I'm not saying that my wife and I don't have issues, but I can't recall the last time. Like, we don't argue, because I actually implement the stuff that I read, right? I can't show more love to my clients than I do my wife. I can't show more love to my social media audience than I do my wife, right? I need to show up the exact same way. So those are the two things that I would say start with, and regroup if you haven't done that yet.
Yeah. No, that's beautiful. I say all the time, like, you got to live what you teach, right? You got to live it at the highest level. If you get asking anyone else to do it, like, you better be doing it yourself. So exactly. That's beautiful. Thank you.
Course,
how can we find out more about you? How can we get a hold of your book and everything else that you got?
Yeah, I mean, everything. I basically run my business from Instagram. Do I have a website? Yeah, my Instagram's at Dom Fausette. My website's domfaussette.com. My books on my website, my books on my Instagram. So if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me via DM. Shoot me a text, 602-481-0650, and I'll be happy to answer a question or two.
All right, man. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you. I appreciate your time, my man.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too.